Welcome to the Skirted Professional Podcast, a place where women of all different walks of life come together to share their journeys and wisdom they've learned along the way. We are so excited that you're part of this community. We hope you always leave this space feeling encouraged, inspired, and a little less alone. The Skirted Professional is brought to you by C Saucy, a medical apparel company that specializes in modern scrub skirt sets for the working woman. Their goal is to give every woman the option to wear a skirt in their workplace without compromising the comfort, style, or functionality of their scrubs. You can check them out at csaucy.com. That's CSAUCY.com. All right, without further ado, let's get to today's episode. All right, welcome to this week's episode of The Skirted Professional. I'm so honored to have my friend Rachel French with me today. She and her husband do music ministry together. You may have heard of Nathan and Rachel. They are youth pastors and music directors at their local church. Her husband serves as youth secretary in Georgia, so they are traveling all the time, doing both music and youth ministry. And she is a preschool teacher and mom to two of the cutest boys and a girl soon to be coming in the next week or so. So we are so excited to have her here. Welcome, Rachel, to the podcast.
Thank you. I am completely honored to be here. I love the podcast. I love you and your family, your whole family, just everybody, all top-notch, first-class people. And I'm so thankful that God connected our paths and that we get to do this. This is awesome.
Absolutely. I think back to the first time I met you, and you actually knew my husband Caleb first through, I think, campus ministry way back in the day. And then we got to have, we got to have you and Nathan at an awakening one year. And Caleb still claims that he's the one that, pushed Nathan to publish music because he sang one of those songs, Great and Mighty, and it was awesome. It was perfect for that awakening. So yeah, we have loved watching your journey from afar, and I'm so excited to kind of dig into it more with you today.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. Yeah. Way back, as in like before CMI, I felt, it was the thing, but it wasn't what it is now. It was so much smaller scale. And, it was like Awakening was like a conference room with a couple dozen people in there. Yeah. And now to see it become such a big conference and it's hundreds of people now, it's it's kind of a weird feeling to think, oh man, it was back in the day.
But, we have a back in the day. That's a weird thought.
We do. We're not old enough for that.
You're right.
But it was 12 years ago. For me, It was 12 years ago that I connected to CMI, and that really, I would say it set the course for where I am today. And that's just the truth, to be a part of such a great ministry. And it brought so many great connections, just being in the apostolic world, to be connected with other people that were on their campuses. And, I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah. So can you, before we dive into your story, I know I gave a glimpse into some of the roles that you play right now. Can you give us a picture of what your daily life looks like in this season?
So my daily life in this season is, it's very interesting. Specifically this season, I am pregnant with our third baby. And so, honestly, due anytime. So by the time you might hear this podcast, I probably do have 3 kids. So daily right now is I do work part-time as a preschool teacher. And I love that. That was a God thing. And my 2 boys go to the school with me at the moment. And it's been such an incredible blessing to our family. To me personally, just as a mom and as a teacher, just working with people, there's things that I've been able to learn from there just based on concepts that we use and
Sure.
tools that we use that have helped tremendously. But I do work there. And then we are incredibly involved in our local church. We go to Apostolic Tabernacle in Jonesboro, Georgia. My father-in-law and mother-in-law are the pastor there, Talmadge and Rebecca French. We sit under them. We serve them, the church, and it's been an incredible 8 years we've been there, or I've been there with Nathan. He's been there a couple of years longer, but when we got married, we took the position of youth pastor, and he was already the music director at the time. So I just uh, kind of joined that because I came from my church where I was the music director. So
Okay.
we are both very active in those roles.
Yeah.
So our daily life looks like work, church, kids. Um, And then, to be honest, a lot of weekends we're traveling.
Mhm.
So it's just balancing it all, making sure that
Mhm.
we're all fair to one another as far as or balanced, if you want to call it that. Um, but that's kind of the big picture, is trying to make sure that we're taking time for everything the way that we need to take time for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know you play all of these roles, wear all these hats right now. Can you take us back to where your kind of career education journey started and maybe the direction that you thought you would go when you started out?
So originally, I had envisioned, going to college and being a counselor, and that was just what I wanted to do. I had gone back and forth for a little bit. Believe it or not, I had like, a couple of minutes of thinking that I was going to go to school and be an attorney. I was going to go to law school, all this stuff.
Right.
And it just, then I prayed about it and started school, and I realized, where I was supposed to be. That was
Yeah.
not it. Um, so I do think that going back to college days really does play a big part in where I'm at today, because when I was a senior in high school, I really did feel direction on where to go to college
Okay.
and what I needed to major in. And it was a local college right there in my town. It was Gordon State College. And the Lord said, go and start a campus ministry. You need,
Mm.
we had a church there in the town, and it's like you have 6,000 people on a campus that you
Yeah.
need to reach with the gospel, and you're going to help grow your church. You're going to do this. You're going to gain an education at the same time.
Yeah.
So once I started there, I definitely had to kind of be redirected and in my major. So I
Mhm.
changed to psychology, and that was a really great fit. That's where I needed to be. And um, so I was at Gordon for a few years, graduated from there, and my last semester there, I met Nathan,
Okay.
and he started coming to our campus ministries, played guitar, led worship, that sort of thing. And we had gotten married, and I needed to start working like immediately, and so I had this really great, I had this degree that I needed to put into action, but I needed a job, and it was one of those things where I had a lot of transitions happening at one time. So um, I ended up working for a probation company,
Okay.
and I just went in as an admin. It was supposed to just be a temporary thing.
Yeah.
What ended up happening was I did keep going to school much more part time
Yeah.
um, for a while, but I worked in as an administrative assistant for this probation company for a while, and then this job opening um, came to me within the office for a probation officer. Before I knew it, I was actually moved to an office as a chief probation officer, and I was running an office. And
Wow.
that was an interesting season. That was 4 years,
Yeah.
um, where I did not expect that at all. So
Mhm.
that's a very quick summary of like from 2010 to, you know, 2014 when I got
Yeah.
married and um, started that career. I mean, that's
Mhm.
really what it became. And I didn't plan for it to be that way. I
Yeah.
really did want to work in a school. I wanted to, um, I wanted to be involved in student ministry, work with
Mhm.
students in my church, and I wanted to work in a school. But I do believe that each season was very intentional, and the Lord
Mhm.
put me where He wanted me
Yeah.
each time because I changed offices. And I did that for a few years until I had Judah, our oldest son.
Mhm.
And then it became a lot to balance because,
Sure.
like I said, so I was the chief probation officer for an office,
Mhm.
which meant I worked a lot. And
Sure.
I was still doing all of the things in my church. My commute was pretty far. So it was, about 60, maybe maybe a little bit more, 60 hours a week
Wow.
where I was gone between commuting and my hours. Um, I just worked a lot,
Yeah.
and I had a newborn. So when Judah was about 11 months old, I
Mhm.
really needed to transition, and I knew that.
Sure.
So I had an opening come up. It was a complete God thing,
Okay.
um, where a school in a church 5 minutes from my house was
Wow.
hiring for
Mm.
a teacher. And that's where I really wanted to be, was in a school. I didn't know what kind of school, I didn't know where. And so I did apply and prayed over that. And it was such a God thing because I went in and I'm like, yes, I'm here to apply to be this teacher. What are you doing right now? So I'm a probation officer. That was really, and that's what I had. Like, I'm like, I went to school. This is where I was. And now I'm saying I really want to teach. They're
Yeah.
like, well, you don't have any history in this. I'm like, I know. But it was a God thing. And has proven to be over and over. So I'm still working there,
Okay.
and it is part time. And like I said, both my boys are there, but it was such a good change for me
Sure.
personally because it was one of those things that once I made that transition, there was so
Mhm.
much more peace in our home.
Yeah.
Judah went from not sleeping through the night to sleeping through the night, and he and I were
Wow.
able to connect so much better. I mean, it was 11 months of just, I know that where I was affecting
Mhm.
him,
Okay.
and so when I transitioned, it
Yeah.
just made our lives a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
uh, then when he was old enough, he started going there, and so now both the boys go there. It's such a great environment, and this is just as far as my career is
Yeah.
concerned. I love teaching. I've been teaching 3-year-olds for the last 4 or 5 years,
Okay.
and and I love it so much. They use a concept called conscious discipline,
Okay.
and I bring that up because I know not everybody knows about that. I
Yeah.
think it's super incredible, not only as a teacher, but for parents and for
Sure.
ministry. It's just so
Sure.
incredible because it's really focused on how to be able to calmly address things, so you can, I mean, it doesn't take much. You can go on Instagram now, it's all over the place where people are trying to change the
Sure.
the trend of how you're talking, how
Yeah.
you're communicating, instead of saying this, say that, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So that's what this really has focused on, and it has made a huge difference for me personally, just
Wow.
and so I was able to tie in that psychology side and
Yeah.
still kind of develop that. And like I said, it has helped so much. There's things that I've been able to implement into our youth ministry based on what I've
Mm.
learned through that. And that's when God kind of he uses those moments and says, see, that's why I needed you in this school, because
Yeah.
you needed to learn these things to make you a better leader, a better
Yeah.
communicator, a better mom, a better wife,
Mm.
all of the things. And that kind of speeds up to where I'm at now is I teach part-time. I'm
Mm.
a mom of three, and um, and so now I'm able, because I went part-time, I'm able to
Mhm.
focus a lot more on my church.
Yeah.
That's where my heart really is my local church.
Yeah.
So that,
I love
that's
that.
a lot.
Yeah, thank you for taking us through that. And wow, it seems like very distinct seasons and very different seasons along the way that you've gone
Yeah.
through with your career journey. Can you take us back to the season of being a probation officer? Because I know we sped through that. Um, what was that
Yeah.
like to have like almost a career unfolding in a field that you weren't maybe expecting or prepared for or loving, but it was unfolding before you because you went pretty quickly, right, from an assistant to officer to chief probation officer. So can you walk us through like how that season was for you?
So it was um, quick, to say at least. Like what you were saying, it did, everything just went really fast.
Yeah.
It challenged me in a lot of ways, and I will be completely transparent and say that it did get to a point where
Mm,
I was really struggling with who I was, because
sure.
it was such an intense job.
Yeah.
And um and not everybody was intense, but um but at the same time, it got to a point, even just on the legal side of things,
Mhm.
just political side of things, just everything that goes into like law,
Yeah.
court, all these sorts of things, that was pretty overwhelming, because
Sure.
there were things that you had to do, and then there were things you were not able to do, and it was ever changing. It
Okay.
felt like to me.
Yeah.
But um but it was hard at times to remember not everybody hated you.
Yeah.
Because that's really how it felt a lot of times, was
Mhm.
someone going into court, and sometimes it was more intense charges than others.
Yeah.
It could be just the fact that we were purely a payment plan. You
Mhm.
got a speeding ticket, and it was a lot of money. And probation, as extreme as it sounds, it was misdemeanors. So
Yeah.
it could just mean that you were put on a payment plan,
Sure.
and that's not fun. That's
Yeah.
not fun when you have to follow a list of really strict rules because of a speeding ticket.
Sure.
So you had to be really careful to watch how you interacted, because it
Yeah.
could be really intense. But then there were more severe cases where there were people that really needed help. They really
Mhm.
needed a lot. So staying up to date with resources, and
Yeah.
providing opportunities for treatment plans, and
Mhm.
um, classes, and even jobs and home options and that sort of thing. um, it was it could be fulfilling at times, because you were truly helping people.
Sure.
But then there were people that just really didn't want help,
Yeah.
and they were, it just kind of kept coming back. And
Mhm.
there were some people I saw the entire time I was there, just because it was just
Wow.
a cycle.
Sure.
There were a lot of moments where God was able to help me
Mm.
and connect me to certain people that they needed him. And
Yeah.
there were convicting moments. There were times that I had post-it notes on my computer that reminded me that my speech needed to be seasoned with salt.
Wow.
That's what I had to
Mm.
become with, you know, to become was someone that when it was a really stressful day and you saw so many people in one day, and
Mm.
most of them are not in a good mood because they're coming to see a probation officer,
Yeah.
you know, it can be really draining. So
Sure.
to have moments where you can be sensitive to a
Hmm.
need, where it's like, okay, this is actually a God moment right here. So let's talk about where you're at and
Yeah.
where you want to go. And just to be someone that believed in people. I wish I could say I was like that all the time. I genuinely got to a point um where I had to work on myself because uh it was hard to trust anyone.
Mm.
And I hate to say that, but it just kind of was what it was become. That's not something that I was proud of and I had to work through. I was very, 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 very guarded. And I'm already naturally a guarded personality.
Mm.
So to go through that and become even more guarded and
Yeah.
to feel like you can trust anybody, and they didn't know if they could trust you. It was
Mhm.
just a really difficult season. But I will say that, like we were saying earlier, I know that I was there on purpose, and I know
Mhm.
that my eyes were open to a lot. I was able to have a lot of conversations that hopefully made an impact, you know, a
Mhm.
godly impact. That even my coworkers, I had really great coworkers, and we're still connected. And one of them, she now we both work in the same city, and she works for the police department in the city where our church is. And so Nathan and I have been able to go and um, we've done concerts for events that they've had, and
Okay.
that's been a really cool connection,
Yeah.
even you know, years down the road, that we've been able to maintain. So
Yeah, what a full
I don't know if that
circle
answers.
moment. Yeah, to be able to go back and, use that connection in what you're doing now. How cool that that has come back around with her.
Yeah, yeah, it was super cool. I really can't remember when it is. My mind is blanking out, but it was a Back the Blue
Nice.
event, and we were able to do a concert on the green, and Nathan and I did the whole concert, and
Wow.
that was a surreal moment because, you know, she and I had been through a lot together, and she
Yeah.
saw that side of me, and we had to work through that together, and we had lots of conversations. And
Mhm.
so to be able to have that moment where it was a very calm and peaceful moment, and we were both able to see where we've grown,
Yeah.
and where life is right now, um, it was a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, even in your early seasons, I think a lot of us can relate to this where, whether we were in school or in our early jobs and couldn't quite see where we were going in the long term, but kind of just felt like we were in that season and couldn't see past it. It's so cool, even on your campus, with God using you through campus ministry, that you were put in places to be able to minister to people, but also in those seasons, God used them to minister to you. So kind of that like double-sided coin of, being there for people, but also being there for your own growth and perspective and, experience to move you into whatever was next after that.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting just because I feel like it's such a different season now than it was
Yeah.
just, you know, for several years. Even in college, yeah,
Hmm.
I was heavily involved in CMI, and, you know, and then just being a student, but I was also involved in student government, and I
Okay.
was the student government president for a while. And so
Okay.
it was strange. Like I said, you know, I was for a while, for I mean, I'm talking for minutes.
Yeah.
I really thought that I would go down a more governmental political journey,
Right.
you know, and I did, but it wasn't in the way that I thought it would be. So I
Yeah.
started out in in school government, you know, college government,
Yeah.
but then I ended up working in the court system for
Yeah.
4 years, and that was a strange. shift because I didn't think that that's where my world would be. And it ended
Mhm.
up that it actually kind of was for a season. I mean, not that I was an attorney or anything,
Yeah.
but to be in a courtroom multiple
Mhm.
times a week, knowing that the Lord told me not to do law.
Right.
um, he's like, that's not actually the direction, but it was for a
Yeah.
season.
Wow.
And I really can't explain to you why, other than I think it helped me um, be a better person now, if
Wow.
that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, and sometimes that's enough. But it's so hard in the moment because you can't see the person you'll be in 5 years or 10 years and how it'll help you. Sometimes we just see the season that we're in, and I do think it's really cool looking. I was going to make that comment earlier, just how you were back and forth between law and then went with psychology, and then your job kind of merged the two really seamlessly, or having to use both, but maybe in really unexpected ways on both ends there. Um, so yeah, can you walk us through then? You got married to Nathan, and I know you guys have your awesome music ministry now, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners have heard you guys because your ministry reaches far and wide. So, can you tell us how that started playing into your lives, or what season that started coming about?
So with music, it has been something that has been a part of my life, all of my life, and Nathan's as well. We both came from musical families.
Mm,
Our even just our church background alone meant music.
sure.
He was he was a PK. I was PK. Um, when Nathan was a young kid, his parents had a home missions church in Wheaton, Illinois, and I was in a church, a very small church. It technically, I guess, it wasn't considered a home missions church, um, but it was a church that my parents took, and we kind of took it from the ground up.
Yeah.
And so, music ministry became part of my life.
Okay.
For both of us, it's funny. Around the age of 9, we both uh, became very involved in music,
Wow.
and
What an early
I
age.
think that there's I know. For him, it was learning how to play guitar. For me, it was learning to play piano, and I was already singing on a platform.
Wow.
I was the praise team.
Mm.
That's just
At
how it was
9?
for a little while. Oh yeah, my mom played keys,
Wow.
and I sang, and that's it grew, and
Mm-hmm.
really how I grew up, it was kids were the praise team.
Wow.
So we lived in a neighborhood full of kids,
Mm.
and my brother and I were very quick to make friends. We
Okay.
were friends with just about every single person in the neighborhood, and they all came to church with us. And that's
Awesome.
how we grew our Sunday school. That's how we grew our praise team. That's how we grew our music team. So I grew up um, being trained with other kids on how to
Yeah.
sing. So
Wow.
that was a big part of the start, just to go way back. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but that for me personally, that was kind of it. I was just a church singer, and I got to sing at camps and that sort of thing. And
Yeah.
so I will say, I know that Caleb says, he still says that time at Awakening with Great and Mighty was kind of
Yeah.
like the launch. And truthfully, it had a big part of it. So Nathan and I got married. Like I said, I had prayed on campus. Our Bible studies needed something more.
Okay.
It was just teaching.
Mhm.
Occasionally, somebody else would teach, but it had just kind of hit a standstill, and I
Okay.
needed it to become something bigger. And
Mhm.
so I really did pray that God would send us like a worship leader, because
Mhm.
I played piano, but you can't exactly carry a piano on
Yeah.
campus necessarily. in the
Sure.
setting we were in, that just wasn't feasible, I couldn't just play and sing.
Sure.
So Nathan and I met at through the district. We met at camp. And he came up to me at one event and he said, "I hear that you have a campus ministry. I'm not that far away. I'd really love to be able to help you guys
Wow.
grow that. If you don't have somebody already, I could even bring my guitar. We could do acoustic music, that sort of thing."
Wow.
And it was just such a God thing. It it
Yeah.
it was it was mind blowing. And I'm
Wow.
like, absolutely. I mean, I've been praying for it for a while.
Yeah.
And then it was only a few weeks later we started dating, and the
So answered
truthfully,
prayers
that
in
that is
many
how.
ways.
Yeah. Yeah, just answered a lot of prayers. But it was a cool moment. So all
Yeah.
of that to say, so Nathan had already written songs,
Okay.
and campus ministry is where I heard some of them for the first time, like Great and Mighty. He sang Great
Wow.
and Mighty and taught
Mhm.
us Great and Mighty, just like he has done. He did
Yeah.
Awakening, and he
Mhm.
doesn't have to do it as much anymore because it is recorded and released.
Right.
But there was a season where anytime he sang it, he would teach it before he sang it because
Yeah.
nobody knew it.
Yeah.
The song "In Your Presence," which is on our
Mhm.
first album, that's one that he sang in campus ministry, and
Wow.
we didn't know it, but we just all sat there just crying and felt the Holy
Wow.
Ghost. And so that song's really special to me. We don't really
Mhm.
even do it that often when we travel, but to me it's really special because I remember those moments
Yeah.
in a classroom on my campus where God came into the room, and that was what I prayed for, was to be able to take
Wow.
us to that next level
Mhm.
of not just learning the word, but having the Holy Ghost just come in, and you had both. You had worship and the word, and
Yeah.
those were able to feed one another, and those songs that God had given him were so special.
Mhm.
So that was a cool moment when um, those things we pushed it in campus ministry. You need to
Yeah.
get these songs recorded. That's where, and
Yeah.
I was not. I didn't have myself in the picture at all. I'm like, Nathan, you need to go record these. These are incredible songs. Go release them. And so then Awakening came up, and we really pushed, like, this is what you do on our campus ministry. You should do
Yeah.
it for Awakening too, because that's what these songs have been, is campus songs.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember at Awakening, he sang Great and Mighty, and a lot of people asked about it,
Yeah.
um, wanted to know if it was recorded, when it was going to be recorded, why wasn't
Mhm.
it recorded, all of these things. And I do think that helped Nathan.
Sure.
So here's an interesting fact that does make a difference in the whole
Mhm.
process of how it started. That awakening, that very awakening,
Mhm.
I was pregnant, and I know and um like a week later, I think,
Mhm.
it's all kind of blurry to me now. We miscarried our baby,
Mhm.
and um, we just an awakening, Great and
Yeah.
Mighty happened, all this stuff,
Wow.
and then we went into a season where it was really rough, and
Yeah.
it was later that year, August of that year, that after all of that, after everybody made a big deal
Yeah.
about Great and Mighty, it was August of that year that Nathan and I we were still really struggling from that. It was
Sure.
just not something that you maybe some people can heal faster than others. We were not.
Yeah.
But we were seeking God why we were in that season. There were several other things that happened that year that were just really tragic. And
Mhm.
it was just a really rough year. It started off great, there we
Yeah.
were.
On high.
But it just kind of was crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but Nathan came to me in August of that year and said, uh, I, I believe the Lord has spoken to me and said we need to go and record a few songs, and then we'll move beyond this season.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, let's do it. I
Yeah.
didn't really know what that meant for me. I
True.
mean, what were we going to do? Are you
Mhm.
going to do this? He's like, no, we're going to do this. And so we planned to go to the studio a few
Mm.
months later. We were connected to Nathan said, he's like, I know exactly who we're supposed to go and work with. I know which songs that we're supposed to record
Wow.
first off. Great and Mighty was one of them, which I was super excited to hear because Nathan is extremely humble and
Mm.
so to take songs like that in that time and be confident enough to say, hey, we're going
Sure.
to do my original songs that I've
Yeah.
written. That was a big deal. So anyways, we went through Vanquish Studios. We met the Salamitas. They're incredible.
Mhm.
Um, we were able to connect with one of the producers that work with us all the time. His name's Chris Hardy. He is a mastermind behind a lot of the music side of things. And all the songs that we do, it's great. But we did see that as a result of that obedience, we thought we were going to go record these songs and be done. I mean, it was just,
Yeah.
that was going to be the end of it.
Wow.
That we had music released and, youth ministry was what we thought we were going to be doing.
Yeah. Sure.
And so to get those songs out and then all
Mhm.
these doors start opening
Yeah.
really beyond our expertise,
Mm.
I it just I did so personally for me, I
Yeah.
wasn't prepared for
Mm.
the doors that were going to open after that.
Yeah.
I was so caught off guard because like I said, this was an area that I was just like I grew up singing out of necessity. I
Yeah.
learned how to play I taught myself how to play enough piano out of necessity.
Yeah.
And I mean Nathan's a really great musician and he grew in a different way. Like he's a
Wow.
truly incredible musician. I mean he plays guitar. People don't really realize how much he played guitar. Like he was behind a guitar for years playing for, different things, conferences in his church,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Um, and I wasn't a songwriter. I just knew how to sing. I didn't know how to teach anything. The first time after that, after we recorded, the
Uh-huh.
first time that a church asked us to come and do a clinic, I left bawling my eyes out because I thought, Lord, I am not equipped to do
Wow.
this. Like, I do not know anything. Every single person that we were just in there with knows more than I do.
Wow.
Why in the world am I here? This is not me. And
Wow.
but he really did just keep saying, yes, it is. It is. This
Wow.
is where I want you to be. So you need to figure it out, like learn
Yeah.
more. And what happened was every year um, after that, the Lord has given us songs um,
Mm.
to go and record. And every
Wow.
for the first 3 years, I think it was like, no, we won't be back. We won't be doing this anymore. And
Mm.
every year, it's just consistently. We haven't missed a year of
Wow.
going and recording at least one new song. And it's become more frequently now because, and this is a whole nother journey, but in that time, I did start writing songs. It's
Okay.
just been in the last 2 years that has become a gift that God has allowed me to
Wow.
have. So now it's more songs like it, whereas Nathan would have one or two songs a year and that he'd want to actually go record.
Sure.
Now I'm saying, hey, I've got this. And so
Wow.
it's been a cool journey. And to go in now, to see the growth
Yeah.
of music, not just in ourselves,
Sure.
myself, but even in our local church,
Wow.
because we've been able to help them grow. And there was a time where if we were out for a weekend or a church
Mhm.
service, it was kind of stressful because everyone just kind of depended on Nathan. I mean, myself included. It was,
Yeah.
he's our leader, and what are we going
Sure.
to do?
Yeah.
And now, when we're out, our church still does. I mean, they're ready. They're ready to go.
Yeah.
Some of them are still trying to grow in their worship leader confidence, but the
Sure.
truth is, they are phenomenal. and
Wow.
God has stretched each and every one of them, and it's been so great. God has put people the in our team that has been able to just thrive, help us grow, and we've been able to teach more effectively. But now to be doing music conferences and actually speaking to these things is so, it's still so strange to me, and
Yeah.
it's been 5 years, but that was a really long version of where we are at, but that's really the history behind what started the
Yeah.
journey to Nathan and Rachel music,
Wow.
which is it's still very humbling, and it's still surreal to me, to be honest.
Yeah.
Anytime that we're asked to do a conference or a um, a music training, it still just blows my mind. And I'm thankful for it. I love it. I
Yeah.
absolutely love it.
Yeah. I think it's so beautiful as you're talking, just how intricately tied your music and your family, your kids, your marriage, even where it started coming out of, grief for both of you into this beautiful thing. Wow, like what an incredible journey and how special that that's all tied together.
Yeah, yeah. We do feel very blessed to we do everything together. And I
Yeah.
know that I don't know if that's considered rare. I feel like it is more on
Yeah.
the rare side. I mean, we truly our ministry is together. Now,
Yeah.
I do want to say this. I do think it's very important that we have not forgotten who God has called each of us to be as individuals.
Sure.
Um, just because we are different people, and we are both responsible for our own souls,
Right.
and so there are moments in our lives where we are kind of reminded,
Mhm.
this is what you are supposed to do, this is what I am supposed to do.
Yeah.
And God has used us differently and
Sure.
separately at times,
Mhm.
and that's awesome, and I don't want to lose sight of that for sure,
Right.
because but again, I cannot express enough that I love doing everything together,
Yeah.
but I also never ever want to forget that um, I've got to stand before God for myself,
Sure.
and
Absolutely.
um, and I want to make sure that I am everything that God wants me to be, everything that He needs me to be for my husband.
Yeah.
That I still know where my place is, where my role is, and we both can operate in those roles, but
Yeah.
we get to complement each other in so many ways, because going to a youth event and getting to co-teach together, that's something we had to learn how to do.
Yeah.
But there are also times that he's preaching and I'm doing a day session, or
Yeah.
we this was a first for us. That just a couple of weeks ago we were at a church where it might actually surprise some people that this was a first, but where I worked with vocals and Nathan worked with band.
Okay.
Most of the time we go in and we just work with vocals. We just
Okay.
together we are working with vocals, and there's a separate band director. And this was
Sure.
a first where we were separated like the whole weekend.
Wow.
And that was again a surreal moment where I'm sitting there and I'm like kind of freaking out, because I'm used to Nathan
Sure.
being the lead on things,
Yeah.
and it was a really cool opportunity to see where we're at and how much
Mhm.
we've grown, and where we need to grow in, if
Sure.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
That was a really cool weekend and a lot of reflecting for sure. But
Yeah.
I love it. I love that our paths are the way that they are. I know that
Mhm.
it's not for everybody.
Sure.
Um, and it can be kind of crazy, but it just works. It just works for
Yeah.
us, and I don't really know why God merged us the way He did,
Yeah.
but I love it, and I'm thankful that it's you know been such an incredible journey.
Yeah. So, kind of on that topic, how have you guys found to balance everything you have going on with you're working, you're traveling, you've got your kids, you've got your marriage, your ministry at the local church. So, how have you found to kind of hold all of these different things at one time?
So several years ago, I went to a girls' conference in Virginia called Esther Conference, and Kim Ballestero was teaching a class, and she made a comment that I have truly never ever forgotten. She said, "Sometimes you just need to make a sandwich and take a nap." And it's so funny because I don't even remember what the class was about, but I have never, ever forgotten that line
Yeah.
that there are days where you can be feeling a certain way, and
Mhm.
the therapy and taking the time to make a sandwich
Yeah.
and then take a nap, everything better.
Yeah.
Um, so it's kind of a joke. Nathan still, he gives me all the credit. He uses it now, but there have been times where you just kind of have to
Yeah.
take the time to do those things. But that's a funny way of saying there it's really important to take care of yourself
Yeah.
and to take care of you mentally, physically, spiritually, and by so fast forward from all those years of me saying, "Hey, sometimes I just we need to. I'm going to go make a sandwich and I'm going to take a nap and we'll start again,"
Yeah.
because you can be really burned out, especially when. So I'm not a total extrovert. Neither is Nathan. He's more introverted than I am.
Okay.
But so with that said, it can
Yeah.
be very draining to just
Sure.
go and go and go. And we both like to just go all the time. As a matter of fact, it feels really strange to me if I don't have a project to work on.
Yeah.
I'm I I realize I'm looking for one. And,
Yeah.
and as a matter of fact, I highly recommend the book Addicted to Busy.
Okay.
Uh, it changed our lives. Um, we had to really work on that. But one thing that we've had to remind ourselves is self care is not selfish. So
Mhm.
taking time to just take a day or
Yeah.
take a weekend or plan a family vacation,
Yeah.
that means you put that in the calendar, and that is not negotiable. That is on your
Mhm.
calendar. You don't book over the top of a family
Mhm.
vacation. And if this is an off day or a weekend that to get away, then that's great. But there are a few things um, that we have learned, and some of these things have come up in a conversation with Brittany Scott.
Okay.
I feel like I learn from her every conversation I have with her. I learned something,
Wow.
and I do. I feel like I credit her for so many things.
Wow.
Um, she's just been an incredible friend to have.
Mhm.
And I text her today and said, I feel like I always learn something from you. And I thanked her for some tips on preventing burnout.
Okay.
So one of those things is sleep. And she brought this verse to our attention about how God gives sleep to those he loves. And it's in
Mhm.
Psalm 127. It's in verse 2. And I think that's so important because see where we were was we would go. We'd put our kids to bed and then we would work after our kids went to bed.
Um,
And so there wasn't much sleep because we were working like jobs during
yeah.
the day, then coming home, being parents, doing dinner and bedtime, and then we were staying up and working on other things.
Yeah.
And sleep is so important. Taking a
Absolutely.
nap every now and then. I'm not saying you should take every day and just, spend half your day sleeping,
Yeah.
but sometimes it is okay to rest.
Yeah.
um, and God wants you to rest. And so another thing is capacity.
Mhm.
And that's really big for me because I feel like I can personally, I can only do so much before I reach full capacity, that I don't know if I can
Sure.
give any more.
Yeah.
And that may, and it's across the board, where I'll hit like this point where if I've got too much going on, then I feel like it's not fair to my kids, it's not fair to my husband, it's not fair to my church, it's not fair to
Sure.
whatever I'm booked, because I don't have words.
Yeah.
I've said all the words. There's no more
Right.
words, and you can see it in my face,
Yeah.
and I really don't like when that happens, where I've reached max capacity. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's important to know your capacity. I've had to learn, especially going in travels, I've had
Yeah.
to learn that it's okay sometimes to go sit in a coffee shop by yourself and
Yeah.
drink a cup of coffee and
That sounds
recharge a
pretty
little bit.
heavenly to me.
I mean, or or even go to your hotel room and
Absolutely.
sit there, and it's okay. It's okay to
Sure.
take a few minutes and recharge, and
Yeah.
and just not say anything, not do anything. Just
Yeah.
I've sat in many chairs by many hotel windows and just uh, took some time to breathe, and and then
Absolutely.
start all over again, because I can recharge quick,
Sure.
and I am thankful for that. But I have to know my capacity. Um, Another thing that we've talked about is Sabbath,
Yeah.
taking a Sabbath, and for so many, if you're working in ministry, Sunday is not a Sabbath. It's not necessarily a rest day.
Right.
Sure, after church we'll rest, but there's got to be a day at some point where you're just making sure that
Yeah.
you are recharged, or
Yeah.
you're taking care of things that you need to take care of at home. Having a family day is really important to me, where
Yeah.
we have at least one day a week where it's just us. Or sometimes it's that I need to call grandma and say, can my kids come spend a few hours with you?
Mm.
um, because I just need I just need a morning
Yeah.
to rest, and
Sure.
that's okay. I don't think that's selfish. And if you have the help there, I mean, truly, even this week,
Mm-hmm.
I asked someone to come over, a young girl that lives very close to us. My kids say she's their favorite girl.
Mm-hmm.
She's such a gem to
Yeah.
us. And I said, "Can you just come over?"
Yeah.
And it she just relieved me of so many things that day.
Yeah.
She would just do things, and it just took so much off of me. I was able to do other things because she was doing this or entertaining the kids, or it was just very helpful. So I
Mhm.
would highly recommend taking advantage of that and not feeling guilty for it, because that's where I'm at. Is I'll
Yeah.
feel guilty for asking for help, and the truth is I need it.
Yeah.
Um, Friends, friends are really important. Taking time for
Yeah.
friends, um, getting just going and getting some fresh air. Margin, if you don't follow her, you need to go follow the Goodness Margin. Shelly Coon, she's pastor's wife here in Georgia, and
Mhm.
she probably has the best explanation for margin I've ever heard in my life.
Yes.
She's a big influence in my life.
Yeah. And
I
if you
text her
haven't
every
heard
now
our
and then and say,
episode, yeah, if you haven't heard our
yes,
episode with her, go back and listen to it too, because she has such good things to share.
she has such incredible things to say.
Yeah.
And she talks about making margin for the good things in life.
Yeah.
And that for sure, that's a big part of self-care. Is I don't need all the things.
Sure.
I you know we've had conversations where I'm like, oh, so you're a realistic minimalist.
Yeah.
Like,
That's a
it's
good time.
realistic that you can do
Yeah.
to not have to worry about it. Like when my kid's room is a disaster, it
Mhm.
it's it looks like a disaster, but the truth is it
Yeah.
takes me 15 minutes to get it all cleaned up,
Yeah.
because she's influenced me to have margin, and that means having a system set in place.
Sure.
for home.
Yeah.
She's a great planner but to have calendars, to have plans, to
Mhm.
think things through, to do batch work, those kind of things they're really important. That's self-care. And
Absolutely. Sure.
it doesn't feel like it at the time, but she always says, my tomorrow me will thank me for what I'm doing tonight, like
Yeah.
making sure your dishes are all done, or
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And I tell myself that a lot. She's like an inner voice now. She's gonna text me, and she listens to this and hears this part. She's gonna be texting me like, Rachel.
My inner voice
Um,
sounds a lot like Shelly Coon.
my inner voice. Right. But anyways, those are just some things that, I mean, truly, it sounds like a lot, but I do have to sit down and write these things down every now and then and remind
Yeah.
myself it is okay to sleep and start again tomorrow. It is
Mhm.
okay to plan ahead for these things.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Yeah.
um, I really believe it's important that we take care of ourselves, because if you do reach a burnout, there's a difference between sacrifice and burnout. Sacrifice is required of us,
Mhm.
and there are times that you have to make sacrifices.
Sure.
Um, but burnout is a completely different feeling, and it can really get you in a bad place if you're not careful. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love that, the things that you mentioned kind of hit every area: physical, mental, spiritual, even socially. Just taking care of yourself in all of these areas is so important. And thank you so much for sharing that with us, and just giving us a glimpse into what it looks like for you in this season and all of the seasons that you've gone through. Just wrapping up, is there anything else that you feel led to share to our listeners?
I do. That is really a big part of just what I want to probably emphasize is
Mm,
I don't feel like we can not be busy
yeah,
in this
sure,
culture, if that makes sense. It's
sure.
such there's just always something to do, or
Mm,
something we have to do, or we're
yeah,
supposed to be doing.
sure.
And it can be really overwhelming. And I think it's really important to learn how to breathe,
Yeah,
and um, one thing that God convicts me of and has for years is, if you're too busy for him, then you're too busy.
wow.
And we can be in work mode and be working for, you know, we're working jobs we're taking care of our families, we have careers, we have those things, we're working in our local churches,
Mm,
and we can be working so much that we may not have as much time for our
sure.
prayer and devotion as we should. And remembering that that is first and foremost what we should be doing.
Yeah,
um, we can kind of put that in the back of our minds. But that's it. I've always tried to remember that if you are too busy to pray and to read your Bible every day, then you're too busy. So
yeah,
where are your priorities? Because there's joy in properly placed priorities. You've got
sure.
Jesus, others, you.
Yeah,
And um, so to remember that, to take time to breathe and just remember who your creator is, who's the one giving you all these opportunities and set you on this path, and to spend time with them. Because just like I said, friends is important. Your social life, having good friends, having quality
yeah,
time with your family, these are really important things. But having quality time with the Savior, with
yeah,
God, um,
absolutely.
he is your sanity. It's just
Yeah.
it's just the truth. And to have those quiet moments,
Mm,
even if it's just taking a few minutes, to have a quiet moment where he can speak to you and give you
mhm.
direction, it could change everything,
Yeah.
just one moment where you didn't let it pass you by, but you just sat in awe. And it could be whether it's in a car and you were listening to a song and you're in the driveway and you're just having a quiet moment where the Lord can speak to you. I've had those moments. Or otherwise, not to forget where your priorities are and making God first in all of those things.
Yeah. Beautiful. Wow. Thank you so much. I have a whole page of notes from our conversation today because you just dropped so much wisdom and depth and richness that just flows out of your journey. So I'm honored that you would come and share with us today and give us a glimpse of where you are, where you've come from. To wrap up, I want to ask you a question that we ask everybody, and it can be whatever knee-jerk reaction comes to mind, whether it's serious, funny, just reality in this season. So, what is saving your life right now?
Saving my life right now. Oh my goodness. Um, oh my word, I don't really know the answer. Because right now I feel like I'm anxiously just waiting for this baby to come.
Yeah. The baby coming would be the answer,
Saving my
maybe.
life. So I know this is a really funny reaction, but
Yeah.
truly it's the season change, going
Yeah.
from summer to fall. I know that
Yes.
sounds crazy. It is such a mental thing for me, because I love fall most of all. Like, I just love it more than anything. And even though it's still 100 degrees outside at the moment, I mean, Georgia it just is what it is.
Yeah.
When it comes to seasons change, there is something about a change in
Yeah.
season that, um, it's pretty therapeutic.
Yeah.
And so, I'm very much like okay, we're in fall. That means we're very close to sweater weather, to cozy, to, we've got PSLs now and we've got all the cozy things.
Yes.
And to me, that's such a great feeling of summer ending, the summer craziness, ending, and fall coming into place where things start to change and your environment, but things start to
Mhm.
change. It's just cozy. And
Yeah.
I know it sounds funny, but that makes the difference to me. I like all things cozy.
Yes.
So, to have some breathing room right now is really important for me. So I
Sure.
feel like that is saving my life.
Absolutely. I am with you. It is the first day that it's the high of 70 degrees here in St. Louis, and I've got a chunky sweater on. Both my kids are in full fall clothes, and we went all out first day that it's felt good. So I'm with you. It just brings that renewal to me when I walk out, and the air feels different. It smells different. So I completely understand
Yep.
that.
See the pumpkins, even at the grocery store, you
Yes.
walk by all the pumpkins and it just brings a happy.
Yes.
It's like, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay that there's watermelons right beside the pumpkins. That's okay. That's okay. They're all great. But
Yeah.
seeing the pumpkins there just is it's great.
Yeah.
It's
Love
refreshing.
it. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again. We are praying Psalms 127 over you in this newborn season that you're about to go into, that you get lots of sleep and rest. But
We'll
thank you
receive that.
again. Yeah. Thank you again. We are so honored to have you here on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much.